Dahlia Merrick's hands trembled as she opened the pink envelope addressed in her cousin's unmistakable flowing script. Inside was exactly what she'd been dreading, an invitation to be Vanessa's bridesmaid. The heavy cardstock slipped from her fingers and landed on the polished oak counter of the Westlake Springs Public Library. "Something wrong?" asked Melanie, her co-worker, from the other side of the circulation desk. "My cousin Vanessa is getting married. That's usually cause for celebration, not looking like you've seen a ghost." Dahlia tucked a strand of mousy brown hair behind her ear. "She wants me to be a bridesmaid." Melanie's eyes widened with understanding. Everyone in Westlake Springs knew Vanessa Harrington, former homecoming queen, social media influencer, and daughter of the town's most prominent family. Just as everyone knew Dahlia was the quiet, plain cousin who preferred books to people. "You don't have to say yes," Melanie offered. The library doors swung open, and Mrs. Tanner, the head librarian, bustled in. "Dahlia, phone call from your aunt in my office. She says it's urgent." Of course it was. Aunt Patricia had probably been waiting by the mailbox, timing the invitation's arrival to the minute. Dahlia squared her shoulders and headed to the office, knowing what was coming. "Dahlia, darling." Aunt Patricia's voice boomed through the receiver. "Did you get Vanessa's invitation? Isn't it wonderful?" "Yes, The wedding will be at the Hartwick Country Club. Black tie, of course. 6 bridesmaids in total, and Vanessa insisted you be among them. Isn't that sweet of her?" Dahlia sat in Mrs. Tanner's creaky chair. "I don't think I'm the right fit for." "Nonsense. Your family. Besides, it's all arranged. The first fitting is next Saturday." "Fitting? For the dresses. Custom made by Eliza Winters. You know, the designer who did all those gowns for the Astor Foundation Gala." Her aunt continued without waiting for a response. "Now, I took the liberty of sending your measurements, but you'll need to be there in person for the final adjustments." Dahlia's stomach nodded. She hadn't agreed to anything yet, but somehow, she was already being measured and fitted. "I really don't think." "Dahlia." Her aunt's voice dropped an octave. "Your mother would have wanted this. Before she passed, she made me promise to make sure you and Vanessa stayed close. This is important to your cousin." The mention of her mother silenced Dahlia's protests. Eleanor Merrick had died 6 years ago after a brief battle with cancer, leaving Dahlia with only her distant father and her mother's sister, Patricia, as family. "Fine," Dahlia conceded. "I'll do it." That evening, Dahlia unlocked the door to her small apartment above Westlake's only bookstore. She kicked off her sensible shoes and collapsed on the second-hand couch, staring at the wedding invitation still in her hand. Her phone buzzed with a text from Vanessa. "Daddy's thrilled you're joining the wedding party. Can't wait for you to meet my fiancé's gorgeous groomsmen. Maybe one of them will finally take you off the shelf. Face with tears of joy kisses. V." Dahlia tossed the phone aside. That was Vanessa, seemingly generous while sliding in a reminder that at 27, Dahlia was still single, still the quiet librarian, still the plain cousin. She walked to her bedroom and faced the mirror, studying herself critically. Her chestnut hair hung limply to her shoulders. Her gray-blue eyes looked tired behind wire-rimmed glasses, and her pale skin showed no evidence of expensive treatments or professional makeup. Next to Vanessa and her glamorous friends, she would look like a sparrow among peacocks. The phone rang again. This time it was her father, Lawrence. "I hear you've agreed to be in Vanessa's wedding," he said without preamble. "Hello to you too, Dad. Patricia tells me it's at Hartwick. They'll expect a proper gift." "I know," Dahlia sighed. Her father never missed an opportunity to remind her that the Harringtons lived in a different tax bracket. After the manufacturing company he co-owned went under a decade ago, Lawrence had become obsessed with appearances. "I'll send you some money towards something appropriate," he said. "Can't have the Merricks looking cheap." "I can afford my own gift," Dahlia said, her pride flaring. She'd saved carefully from her librarian's salary. "Don't be stubborn, Dahlia. It's not just about you." After hanging up, Dahlia pulled a weathered photo album from her bookshelf. Inside were pictures of her mother, Eleanor at the beach, Eleanor in the garden, Eleanor holding a baby Dahlia. Looking at her mother's warm smile and kind eyes, Dahlia felt a familiar ache. "I'm doing this for you, Mom," she whispered, tracing her mother's face. "But I have a feeling this wedding is going to be a complete disaster." She had no idea just how prophetic those words would prove to be. The Hartwick Country Club loomed over the Connecticut landscape like a temple to old money, its limestone facade gleaming in the late afternoon sun. Dahlia clutched her sensible handbag as she walked through the imposing entrance, already feeling out of place. The wedding rehearsal was scheduled for 6, but Vanessa had insisted all bridesmaids arrive 2 hours early for pre-rehearsal bonding. Inside the grand ballroom, 5 women in designer clothes clustered around Vanessa, who stood resplendent in a white cocktail dress. Dahlia recognized them from Instagram. Fitness influencer Megan, cosmetics heiress Taylor, reality TV star Skylar, fashion blogger Zoe, and Adriana, Vanessa's sorority sister, who now ran her family's real estate empire. "Dahlia, you made it." Vanessa's voice carried across the room. All heads turned to stare. Dahlia forced a smile and approached the group. She'd spent an hour choosing her outfit, a navy blue dress she'd worn to a colleague's wedding last year. It had seemed elegant at home, but now it felt hopelessly dowdy. "Everyone, this is my cousin Dahlia," Vanessa announced, air-kissing Dahlia's cheek. "She works at a library." She said this as if announcing Dahlia cleaned sewers for a living. "How quaint," said Taylor, her perfectly contoured face betraying a hint of confusion, as if she'd never actually met someone who worked for a living. "I didn't know people still went to libraries," Skylar stage whispered to Megan, who snickered. "Vanessa mentioned you're single," Adriana said, giving Dahlia a pitying once-over. "Don't worry, we'll help you look your absolute best for the wedding photos. First impressions are everything when husband hunting." Before Dahlia could respond, the wedding planner appeared, clipboard in hand. "Ladies, it's time to discuss the processional. Bridesmaids will enter in pairs, except for the maid of honor." She glanced at her notes. "Which one of you is Dahlia Merrick?" Dahlia raised her hand reluctantly. "Since we have an odd number, you'll be walking alone, just before the maid of honor." "Wouldn't it make more sense for me to pair with someone?" Dahlia asked. "The groomsmen have already been paired based on height," the planner explained with forced patience. "And since you're, well, she means you're the shortest," Zoe helpfully supplied. "And the least likely to catch a groomsman's attention, so it's fine if you walk alone." The women tittered while Vanessa pretended to look sympathetic. "Don't worry, the walk is short," the planner assured her. "No one will be looking at you anyway." 2 hours later, the groomsmen arrived. They were exactly what Dahlia expected: handsome, wealthy men from Vanessa's fiancé's social circle. They barely glanced at Dahlia as introductions were made, their eyes lingering on the other bridesmaids. Midway through the rehearsal, disaster struck. As they practiced the processional, Dahlia tripped on an uneven floor tile. She stumbled forward, grabbing a nearby chair for balance. The chair toppled, sending a cascade of water glasses crashing to the floor. Silence fell, broken only by Skylar's theatrical gasp. "Oh my God, Dahlia!" Vanessa shrieked. "Those glasses are Waterford crystal. They cost more than you make in a month." Dahlia's face burned as the event staff rushed to clean up. "Perhaps we should take 5, the wedding planner suggested, her smile strained. As everyone dispersed, Dahlia slipped away to a deserted terrace overlooking the golf course. Tears of humiliation pricked her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. This was exactly why she'd wanted to decline the invitation. "Need this?" The deep voice startled her. A man stood in the shadows, holding out a glass of whiskey. He was tall, with dark hair and sharp features that softened slightly as he offered the drink. "I don't usually accept alcohol from strangers," Dahlia said. "Thorne Blackwood, groomsman, best friend of the groom." He stepped into the light. "Still a stranger?" Dahlia recognized him now, the only groomsman who hadn't been paired with a bridesmaid. She'd assumed he was the best man, but hadn't caught his name during introductions. "Dahlia Merrick," she replied, accepting the glass. "Cousin of the bride, destroyer of Waterford crystal." His mouth quirked. "I saw what happened. The floor is uneven there. Not your fault." Dahlia took a sip, surprised by the gesture. "Why aren't you inside with everyone else?" Not a fan of rehearsed spontaneity. He leaned against the balustrade. "Or watching women being deliberately cruel to each other." Dahlia stiffened. "I don't need pity." "Good, because I'm not offering any." His gaze was direct, assessing. "I just recognize someone who'd rather be anywhere else." Before she could respond, shouts erupted from inside. Vanessa was calling for the bridesmaids to gather for photos. "Your presence is required, it seems," Thorne said. "Unfortunately." Dahlia drained her glass and handed it back. "Thanks for the drink, Mr. Blackwood." "Thorne," he corrected. "And you might want this." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a slim metal tube. What is it? Stain remover pen. You spilled some whiskey on your dress. Dahlia looked down, mortified to see a dark spot on her navy dress. Don't worry, Thorne added. No one was looking at you anyway. He echoed the wedding planner's earlier words, but his tone transformed them from dismissal to shared joke. As Dahlia rejoined the bridal party, she felt Thorne's eyes following her. For a fleeting moment, she wondered if someone had, in fact, been looking at her after all. The Hartwick Country Club was transformed for Vanessa's wedding day. Crystal chandeliers sparkled above tables adorned with white orchids and gold-rimmed china. Outside, a white carpet stretched across the manicured lawn toward a floral arch overlooking the lake. Everything was picture-perfect, including the bridesmaids in their champagne silk dresses. Except Dahlia. The same dress that hugged Skylar's curves and complemented Adriana's golden skin made Dahlia look washed out and awkward. The seamstress had tried her best, but as Taylor helpfully pointed out, some body types just aren't meant for silk. Dahlia stood in the bridal suite bathroom, away from the champagne-fueled chatter of the other bridesmaids. She adjusted her dress for the 10th time and reapplied her lipstick, hoping to add some color to her face. Hiding, Vanessa appeared in the doorway, resplendent in her couture gown. Just freshening up, Dahlia said. Vanessa smiled, the kind of smile that never reached her eyes. You look nice, different from your usual librarian look. She stepped closer, lowering her voice. I told the photographer to position you at the back of the group photos. It's better for the composition. Of course, Dahlia murmured. There's a seating change too. You're at table 7 now, with some of Richard's work colleagues. Table 7, the farthest from the head table. Dahlia wasn't surprised. I'm just glad you're here. Vanessa squeezed her arm. Mom would have loved seeing her little girl as a bride, and Aunt Eleanor would have been so proud to see you as part of it. The mention of her mother felt like a precision strike, designed to ensure Dahlia's compliance. Before she could respond, the wedding planner appeared, announcing it was time to line up for the ceremony. The wedding proceeded flawlessly. Dahlia walked alone down the aisle, focusing on placing one foot in front of the other, intensely aware of hundreds of eyes watching. She took her place beside the altar and watched Vanessa float down the aisle on her father's arm, the embodiment of bridal perfection. During the reception, Dahlia sat at table 7 as promised, surrounded by strangers who were more interested in networking than making conversation with the bride's plain cousin. She picked at her salmon and sipped champagne, counting the minutes until she could reasonably leave without causing offense. Mind if I join you? Thorne Blackwood stood beside her empty chair, a plate in one hand and a glass of whiskey in the other. Shouldn't you be at the head table? Dahlia asked, surprised. I switched with Skylar's husband. He wanted to be closer to the bar and He paused. I prefer more interesting company. As he sat, Dahlia noticed several guests turning to stare. Thorne Blackwood, CEO of Blackwood Technologies and best friend of the groom, choosing to sit at the reject table was apparently newsworthy. You're causing a stir, Dahlia noted. Good. Most of these events are unbearably predictable. He studied her face. You look different today. Self-conscious, Dahlia touched her hair, which Vanessa's stylist had twisted into an elaborate updo. The makeup artist had her work cut out for her. That's not what I meant. His expression was unreadable. There's something familiar about you. We met yesterday, Dahlia reminded him. No, it's something else. He leaned closer, his eyes scanning her features. Your eyes. They remind me of someone. Before Dahlia could respond, Vanessa appeared, her smile brittle as she looked between them. Thorne, we missed you at the head table. She placed a possessive hand on his arm. I need to borrow you for photos with Richard. Of course. Thorne stood, his eyes still on Dahlia. Save me a dance. After he left, Dahlia felt several pairs of eyes on her. Adriana slid into Thorne's vacant chair. What was that about? She demanded. What? Thorne Blackwood. Talking to you. Adriana's perfectly sculpted eyebrows rose. You know his company is valued at over $3 billion, right? He doesn't typically socialize with, well, librarians. Dahlia supplied. I was going to say regular people, but sure. Adriana leaned closer. Vanessa tried to set me up with him last year. He wasn't interested. Not in Vanessa either, though she doesn't admit it. So that explained Vanessa's territorial behavior. Dahlia filed that information away. He's probably just being polite, Dahlia said. Adriana laughed. Thorne Blackwood isn't known for politeness. He's brilliant but ruthless in business. The tech world calls him the executioner because of how he dismantles competing companies. The conversation ended as the MC announced the first dance. Dahlia watched as Vanessa and Richard took to the floor, followed by their parents. When the bridal party was invited to join, Dahlia remained seated, having no partner. She was considering slipping out when Thorne appeared again. "I believe you owe me a dance," he said, extending his hand. "I don't remember agreeing," Dahlia replied, but she stood anyway. On the dance floor, Thorne moved with surprising grace for such a tall man. Dahlia followed his lead, acutely aware of how they must look, the striking billionaire and the plain bridesmaid. "Everyone's staring," she murmured. "Let them." His hand was warm against her back. "You shouldn't care what these people think." "That's easy for you to say, is it?" His eyes held hers. "I've spent my life being judged for my family's money, for my business decisions, for who I date or don't date. The difference is, I decided long ago their opinions are irrelevant." As they danced, Dahlia noticed Thorne studying her face again, that same searching look in his eyes. "Why do you keep looking at me like that?" she finally asked. "Your eyes," he said quietly. "They're exactly like Eleanor Merrick's." Dahlia missed a step, nearly stumbling. "You knew my mother?" For the first time, Thorne looked uncertain. "I should talk to you about that. Not here, though." The music ended, and he released her. "Meet me on the East Terrace in 20 minutes. As Thorne walked away, Dahlia stood frozen in the middle of the dance floor, her mind racing. How did Thorne Blackwood know her mother? And why did she have the unsettling feeling that her life was about to change completely? 20 minutes felt like an eternity. Dahlia made her way through the reception, dodging drunk groomsmen and avoiding Vanessa's scrutinizing gaze. The East Terrace was deserted when she arrived, its stone balustrade overlooking the darkened golf course. For a moment, she wondered if Thorne had changed his mind. "You came." She turned to find him emerging from the shadows, his bow tie loosened and jacket unbuttoned. He looked less polished than before, more human. "You said you knew my mother," Dahlia said, dispensing with pleasantries. Thorne nodded, his expression grave. "Not well. I was young when I met her, maybe 16. She worked for my father as his executive secretary for several years." "That's impossible." Dahlia shook her head. "My mother was a kindergarten teacher until she got sick." Before that, Thorne clarified, "Eleanor Merrick worked at Blackwood Technologies from 1995 to 1998, before you were born." Dahlia's mind raced. Her mother had never mentioned working for the Blackwoods. Why would she keep that secret? "You look exactly like her," Thorne continued. "When I first saw you at the rehearsal, I couldn't place it. But today, in the light, it's unmistakable." "Why should I believe you?" Dahlia challenged, though something about his certainty made her uneasy. "You don't have to take my word for it." He reached into his pocket and pulled out his phone, scrolling through several screens before handing it to her. "This is from the Blackwood Technologies 25th anniversary compilation. My father kept digital archives of everything." The photo showed a younger Maxwell Blackwood with his executive team. And there, standing slightly behind him, was unmistakably Eleanor Merrick. "I don't understand," Dahlia whispered. "She never mentioned this." "There's more." Thorne hesitated. "Your mother left the company suddenly. There were rumors." A crash of shattering glass from inside the reception interrupted them. They turned to see Vanessa standing in the doorway, her face contorted with fury. "So this is where you disappeared to," she hissed, eyes fixed on Dahlia. "With him." "Vanessa, we were just talking," Dahlia began. "Save it." Vanessa stepped onto the terrace, champagne sloshing from the glass in her hand. "I saw you dancing with him. Now you're out here, alone in the dark? On my wedding day?" "This isn't what you think," Thorne said firmly. "Isn't it?" Vanessa laughed bitterly. "Thorne Blackwood, always collecting strays. Let me guess, you felt sorry for poor plain Dahlia?" "That's enough." Thorne's voice hardened. "No, it's not." Vanessa turned her venom toward Dahlia. "You think he's interested in you? Don't be naive. Ask him why he's really talking to you." Before either could respond, Richard appeared in the doorway. "Vanessa? They're looking for us to cut the cake." With a final glare at Dahlia, Vanessa composed herself and returned to her husband's side, her perfect bride mask slipping back into place. After they left, a heavy silence fell between Dahlia and Thorne. "She's right, isn't she?" Dahlia finally said. "You weren't just being friendly. You recognized me because of my mother." Thorne didn't deny it. Initially, yes. But that's not. I think I should go. Dahlia turned to leave. Wait. Thorne caught her arm. There's something you should know about why your mother left Blackwood Technologies. The intensity in his eyes stopped her. What? Not here. He glanced toward the reception. Do you work tomorrow? It's Sunday. The library's closed. Meet me there anyway. 10 o'clock. He released her arm. Please, Dahlia. It's important. After Thorne returned to the reception, Dahlia remained on the terrace, trying to make sense of what she'd learned. Her mother had kept secrets, significant ones. But why? And what did Thorne know that he wasn't telling her? The next morning, Dahlia arrived at the Westlake Springs Public Library at 9:30, using her key to enter the silent building. Sunday mornings had always been her favorite time here. The sunlight streaming through tall windows, the books waiting patiently on their shelves, the peaceful quiet. Today, that quiet felt oppressive. She settled at her desk in the reference section, pulling up the library's digital newspaper archives. If her mother had worked for Blackwood Technologies until 1998, there might be records. She was so absorbed in her search that she didn't hear the door open. Finding anything? Dahlia startled, looking up to find Thorne standing before her desk. Gone was the formal attire from the wedding, replaced by dark jeans and a gray cashmere sweater that somehow made him look even more imposing. How did you get in? The door was unlocked, he said, raising an eyebrow. Not the best security practice. Dahlia frowned. She was certain she'd locked it. I haven't found much, she admitted, turning back to the screen. Just a mention of my mother attending a Blackwood Technologies charity gala in 1997. You won't find the full story in public records. Thorne set a leather portfolio on her desk. My father was careful about what made it to the press. Dahlia eyed the portfolio warily. What is this? Personnel files, internal memos, correspondence. Everything I could find about your mother's time at the company. Is this legal? She asked, even as her hand reached for the portfolio. Technically, I'm the CEO. These are my company's records. Dahlia opened the portfolio and began reading. According to the documents, Eleanor had been hired as Maxwell Blackwood's executive assistant in 1995. Performance reviews described her as exceptionally competent and discreet until her abrupt resignation in January 1998. There's nothing here explaining why she left, Dahlia noted, flipping through the pages. Thorne sat on the edge of her desk. That's because the official records were sanitized. My father was meticulous about controlling information. Then how do you know there's more to the story? Because the night before she resigned, there was a security incident at headquarters. I remember it because my father was furious. It was the only time I ever saw him lose control. His expression darkened. Eleanor was there late, alone with my father. The next day, she was gone. A chill ran through Dahlia. Are you suggesting something happened between them? I don't know what happened, Thorne admitted. But 6 months later, my father arranged a significant payment to Lawrence Merrick's manufacturing company. It was logged as an investment, but the company never produced anything for Blackwood Technologies. Dahlia felt sick. You think my father was paid off? For what? That's what I've been trying to figure out. Thunder rumbled outside, matching the storm brewing inside Dahlia. My father passed away 3 months ago. Before he died, he mentioned Eleanor's name in his delirium. He seemed afraid. Rain began to pelt the library windows as the implications of Thorne's words settled over Dahlia. Her mother, her father, the Blackwoods, everything she thought she knew about her family was suddenly in question. I need to see where she worked, Dahlia decided, standing abruptly. The Blackwood Technologies building. It's pouring outside, Thorne pointed out. As if in response, a flash of lightning illuminated the library, followed immediately by a deafening thunderclap. The lights flickered once, twice, then went out completely. In the sudden darkness, Dahlia felt Thorne move closer, his presence somehow both threatening and reassuring. Looks like we're not going anywhere for a while, he said quietly. The storm had trapped them together, and Dahlia had the distinct feeling that by the time it passed, nothing in her life would ever be the same. The library's emergency lights cast an eerie glow over the stacks. Dahlia found candles in the staff room, while Thorne called his driver to report they were stranded. The storm had flooded several roads around Westlake Springs, making travel impossible for at least a few hours. They sat across from each other at a reading table, the portfolio of documents between them like a ticking bomb. Tell me everything you know about my mother, Dahlia demanded, her voice steady despite her inner turmoil. Thorne leaned forward, his face half illuminated by candlelight. She was respected, professional. My father relied on her completely. She had access to all his files, his schedule, his confidential correspondence. That still doesn't explain why she left so suddenly. No, Thorne agreed. But I have a theory. He pulled another document from his jacket pocket, older, more worn than the others. This is a memo from my father to the company's CFO, dated 1 week before your mother resigned. Dahlia scanned the document, legal terminology swimming before her eyes. I don't understand what I'm looking at. It's instructions to create a shell corporation. My father was diverting company funds, significant amounts, through various dummy accounts. Thorne's expression hardened. I think your mother discovered it. You think she was blackmailing him? That the payment to my father's company was hush money? Maybe, Thorne admitted. Or maybe my father was trying to keep her quiet another way. The implication hung in the air between them. Dahlia's mind raced with possibilities, each more disturbing than the last. I need to ask my father about this, she said. Be careful. Lawrence Merrick accepted that money for a reason. Their conversation was interrupted by Dahlia's phone ringing. Vanessa's name flashed on the screen. I should take this, Dahlia said. She's probably wondering where I disappeared to last night. But Vanessa wasn't calling about the wedding. Her voice was shrill, bordering on hysterical. How could you? She demanded without preamble. Richard and I just landed in Bermuda for our honeymoon, and my phone is exploding with messages about you and Thorne. What are you talking about? Don't play innocent. Someone posted photos of you two dancing, then disappearing to the terrace together. The Westlake Gazette is running a story about Thorne Blackwood's secret romance with the bride's cousin. Dahlia glanced at Thorne, who was watching her with concern. That's ridiculous. We barely know each other. Do you think anyone will believe that? Especially when they find out about your mother. Dahlia froze. What about my mother? Aunt Grace told me years ago, Vanessa sneered, about how Eleanor worked for Maxwell Blackwood until suddenly she didn't. And 9 months later, there you were. Do the math, Dahlia. The phone slipped from Dahlia's fingers, clattering on the table. Thorne picked it up, hearing Vanessa's voice still spitting venom. Ms. Harrington, he interrupted coolly. I suggest you think very carefully about spreading unfounded rumors. Unfounded? Vanessa laughed bitterly. Ask your father. Oh wait, he's dead. How convenient. But everyone knows he had a thing for his secretaries. And Eleanor was his favorite. This conversation is over. Thorne ended the call and looked at Dahlia, who sat motionless, her face drained of color. She's suggesting that Maxwell Blackwood was my father, Dahlia said hollowly. That would make you. She's wrong, Thorne said firmly. My father wasn't a saint, but he wouldn't. How do you know? Dahlia stood abruptly. You were a teenager, and you just told me he was embezzling from his own company. What else was he capable of? She moved away from the table, needing distance. The implications were too overwhelming. If what Vanessa suggested was true, then everything, her identity, her relationship with her father, and especially her growing feelings for Thorne, was built on lies. Dahlia. Thorne's voice was gentle as he approached her. Whatever the truth is, we'll figure it out. We. She turned on him, anger displacing shock. There is no we. You came to me because you recognized my mother and wanted answers about your father's secrets. Now Vanessa has thrown this bombshell, and you're still here. Why? What do you really want from me? The truth, he said simply. For both of us. Before she could respond, a notification pinged on her phone. Then another, and another. Thorne's phone began buzzing as well. The photos Vanessa mentioned had gone viral. Dahlia's rarely used social media accounts were flooded with messages from people she barely knew. And worse, a breaking news alert from the Westlake Gazette. Blackwood heir linked to librarian. Secret family connection? How did they know to connect our families already? Dahlia whispered, horrified. Thorne's expression darkened as he scrolled through his messages. Someone leaked it. The timing is too perfect. He looked up, his eyes intense. This isn't about gossip. Someone wants this information public. But who would? Dahlia stopped as realization dawned. Vernon Hayes. Vanessa's uncle? What does he have to do with this? He works with my father sometimes. And I've seen him at the library, researching old business records. Dahlia's mind was putting pieces together rapidly. What if he found something about your father and my mother? Something he could use. Use for what? You're the CEO of Blackwood Technologies. That makes you a target. She paced the floor, thinking aloud. The scandal alone could affect your stock prices, your reputation. Thorne was already on his phone, typing rapidly. Hayes Enterprises announced a hostile takeover attempt last month. It was blocked by our board, but if they could destabilize leadership. The library door banged open, startling them both. Lawrence Merrick stood in the doorway, rain dripping from his coat, his face a mask of fury. "Get away from my daughter," he growled at Thorne. "Dad," Dahlia was shocked. Her father rarely came to the library. "How did you know I was here?" "Vanessa called me after you hung up on her." He stalked toward them. "She told me everything. About you too, about the rumors." "They're just rumors," Dahlia insisted. "We're trying to figure out the truth." "The truth?" Lawrence laughed humorlessly. "The truth is the Blackwoods destroyed our family once. I won't let it happen again." He turned to Thorne. "Tell your board the deal is off. I won't sell my patents to Blackwood Technologies. Not now, not ever." Thorne frowned. "What patents?" "Don't play dumb. Vernon Hayes told me everything. How you've been courting my daughter to pressure me into selling my manufacturing process patents." Dahlia looked between the two men, confusion mounting. "Dad, that's not. You need to leave, Dahlia. Now." Her father grabbed her arm. "This man isn't interested in you. He's using you to get to me, just like his father used your mother." "Used her how?" Dahlia demanded, pulling free of his grip. Lawrence's expression faltered. For a moment, he looked older, tired. "Ask him about Project Nightshade. Ask him what Maxwell Blackwood was really doing with company funds." Thorne stiffened, recognition flashing in his eyes. "You know what it is," Dahlia said, watching him. "Tell me." Before Thorne could answer, Lawrence stepped between them. "If you tell her, I'll lose her forever. Is that what you want? To destroy another family for Blackwood's sins?" The tension in the library was palpable as Dahlia looked from her father to Thorne, both men hiding truths that could shatter her world. The storm outside had begun to subside, but the real tempest was just beginning. Dahlia stood in the doorway of her father's house, watching the rain slide down the windows. 3 days had passed since the confrontation at the library. 3 days of ignoring calls from Vanessa, avoiding social media, and trying to process the possibility that her entire life might be built on a lie. "You haven't touched your dinner," Lawrence observed from his armchair, where he nursed a glass of bourbon. She turned to face him. "I want the truth about Mom. About Maxwell Blackwood. About everything." Lawrence sighed heavily. "I knew this day would come eventually." "So it's true? Maxwell Blackwood was my father?" "No." His voice was firm. "I am your father, Dahlia. DNA doesn't lie." She blinked in surprise. "You had a paternity test done?" "When you were born." He set down his glass. "Your mother insisted. She knew there would be rumors." "Because she had an affair with him?" "Because Maxwell Blackwood tried to have an affair with her," Lawrence corrected. "Eleanor rejected him. That's what started everything." He gestured for Dahlia to sit, his expression grim. "Eleanor discovered irregularities in the company finances. She confronted Maxwell, thinking it was simple embezzlement. It wasn't. It was Project Nightshade." "What was Project Nightshade?" "A black market operation. Maxwell was using company resources to facilitate transactions between some very dangerous people. Weapons, mostly. When Eleanor threatened to expose him, he tried to buy her silence. First with seduction, then with threats. So she quit," Dahlia said. "She came to me terrified. We'd been dating about a year by then. I convinced her to gather evidence before going to the authorities. But before she could, our house was broken into. Her files were stolen, and she was beaten badly enough to be hospitalized." Dahlia felt sick. "And the police did nothing?" "The local police chief was on Maxwell's payroll. The case was buried." Lawrence's hands shook slightly as he continued. "A week later, Maxwell approached me with an offer. A significant investment in my company and protection for Eleanor, in exchange for our silence and the patents I was developing for a new manufacturing process." "So you took the deal." "We were scared, Dahlia. Eleanor was pregnant with you by then. We needed to disappear, start fresh. The pieces were falling into place. That's why we moved to Westlake Springs." "Why she changed careers?" Lawrence nodded. "Maxwell kept his word. The money let us build a new life, and he kept his distance. Until my company started failing a decade ago." "What happened?" "The recession hit us hard. I asked Maxwell for another investment. He refused, but offered to buy my patents outright. I declined." Lawrence's expression hardened. 2 months later, our biggest client canceled their contract, then another and another. Maxwell was systematically destroying my business. How does Vernon Hayes fit into this? Dahlia asked, recalling her father's outburst at the library. Vernon approached me last year, claiming to have evidence that Maxwell had sabotaged my company. He offered to help me sue Blackwood Technologies for damages. Lawrence laughed bitterly. When Maxwell died, Vernon changed tactics. He suggested I sell my patents to him instead, to use against Blackwood Technologies in a takeover bid. Did you agree? I was considering it, Lawrence admitted, until I saw those photos of you with Thorne. Vernon called immediately, implying Thorne was using you to get to me and my patents. That's why I came to the library that day. Dahlia absorbed this information silently. Everything was connected. Her mother, the Blackwoods, Vernon Hayes, the patents, the rumors. I need to talk to Thorne, she finally said. Dahlia, no. The Blackwoods can't be trusted. I'm not trusting anyone right now, she replied. But someone is manipulating all of us, and I need to know who. Lawrence looked defeated. Eleanor always said you had her stubbornness. He reached into his desk drawer and pulled out a flash drive. If you're determined to pursue this, take this. It's everything I have on Project Nightshade and Maxwell's dealings. Eleanor compiled it before the break-in. I've kept it hidden all these years. Across town, in the luxury apartment complex overlooking Westlake Harbor, Thorne Blackwood was fighting a different battle. Blackwood Technologies stock had dropped 15% since the scandal broke. The board was in panic mode, and his COO was fielding calls from nervous investors around the clock. Hayes Enterprises increased their tender offer this morning, his assistant reported. They're exploiting the stock drop. Decline it, Thorne said flatly, staring out at the rain-washed skyline. His thoughts kept returning to Dahlia and the look on her face when Vanessa's accusations were revealed. He had tried calling her multiple times, but she wasn't answering. His phone rang, an unlisted number. Against his better judgment, he answered. Mr. Blackwood. The voice was unfamiliar. I believe we have mutual interests to discuss. Who is this? Someone who knows what Vernon Hayes is really after. Meet me at the East Pier Boat Storage, slip 14. Come alone. The line went dead. Thorne considered his options. It was likely a trap, but he needed information. He texted his head of security the location, instructing him to be nearby but unseen, then headed to the garage. The East Pier was deserted when he arrived, rain falling steadily on the metal roofs of the boat storage units. Slip 14 was at the end of the row, partially hidden from the main dock. Thorne approached cautiously, one hand on the pepper spray in his pocket. Hello, Thorne. He spun around to find Dahlia standing in the shadows, rain glistening on her hair and coat. Dahlia? You called me. No. She looked as surprised as he felt. I got a text message from this number, saying you wanted to meet. I got a phone call saying someone had information about Hayes. Realization dawned. We've been set up. No sooner had the words left his mouth than the storage unit door slammed shut behind them, the metallic clang of a lock engaging. Thorne rushed to the door, but it was sealed tight. Someone wants us trapped together, Dahlia said, pulling out her phone. No signal. Thorne scanned the unit. It housed a small cabin cruiser on a trailer, surrounded by maintenance equipment. My security team knows I'm here. They'll check when I don't come out. How long will that take? 10 minutes, maybe 15. He studied her face in the dim light filtering through the unit's small windows. Are you okay? After everything at the library. My father told me the truth. About my mother, Maxwell, everything. She held up the flash drive. He gave me this. It contains evidence about Project Nightshade. Thorne's expression darkened. I found references to that in my father's private server after he died. I've been trying to piece it together. It was an illegal weapons operation your father was running through the company, Dahlia explained. My mother discovered it, and he tried to silence her. That matches what I found, Thorne admitted, along with evidence that Vernon Hayes was involved. Not just involved, he was my father's partner in it. Dahlia's eyes widened. So when Vernon approached my father about selling his patents, he was trying to tie up loose ends, eliminate anyone who knew about Nightshade. Thorne moved closer. The rumors about you possibly being my sister, that was a distraction. The real target is your father's patents and silencing anyone connected to Nightshade. We need to get out of here, Dahlia said urgently. If Vernon knows we're comparing notes. As if on cue, the acrid smell of smoke began to fill the storage unit. Flames appeared at the far end, quickly climbing up the wooden hull of the boat. He's trying to kill us, Dahlia whispered, backing toward the locked door. Thorne grabbed a crowbar from the tool rack and attacked the door hinges. We're not dying here. Not before we expose him. Smoke filled the storage unit as flames consumed the boat's wooden hull. Thorne attacked the door hinges with the crowbar while Dahlia searched for another way out. The small windows were barred, designed to prevent theft rather than facilitate escape. The hinges won't budge, Thorne coughed, his face streaked with sweat. Dahlia spotted a fire extinguisher mounted on the wall. Here. She grabbed it and handed it to Thorne, then wrapped her scarf around her face to filter the thickening smoke. Thorne aimed the extinguisher at the base of the flames, but the fire had grown too large. It's not enough. We need another way. Dahlia's eyes watered as she scanned the unit. The roof, there's a skylight. Above the boat, a small rectangular skylight was built into the metal roof. Thorne climbed onto the trailer, then onto the burning boat itself, reaching for the skylight latch with the crowbar. The heat was intense, flames licking at his legs as he strained upward. Got it. The latch broke, and the skylight swung open. Dahlia, come on. She climbed up, coughing violently. Thorne boosted her through the opening, then hauled himself up after her, his pant leg smoldering. They collapsed on the wet metal roof as rain pelted down, extinguishing the small flames on Thorne's pants. In the distance, sirens wailed. Thorne's security team had called the fire department. He pulled Dahlia close, shielding her from the rain with his body. Are you hurt? He asked, examining her soot-streaked face. No. She clutched the flash drive, miraculously still in her hand. We need to get this somewhere safe. If Vernon tried to kill us, he'll try again. They carefully made their way to the edge of the roof and climbed down using a maintenance ladder. By the time fire trucks arrived, they were already in Thorne's car, heading toward the Blackwood Technologies headquarters in the next town. We can't go to the police, Thorne said as he drove. Not yet. Vernon has too many connections, and without proof, it's our word against his. The flash drive has proof, Dahlia reminded him. We need more than decades-old files. We need to connect Vernon directly to the fire, to the rumors, and to Project Nightshade's current operations. Current. Dahlia turned to him, alarmed. You think it's still active? I found recent transactions in a hidden company server. Similar patterns to what my father used, shell corporations, offshore accounts. But I couldn't trace them back to anyone specific. He gripped the steering wheel tightly. If Vernon's still running Nightshade, it explains why he's so desperate to take over Blackwood Technologies. He needs control of our systems to continue hiding the operation. At Blackwood headquarters, security was tight. Thorne's near-death experience had triggered emergency protocols, and armed guards met them at the private entrance. They were escorted to Thorne's office on the top floor, a modernist space with glass walls overlooking the city. We'll be safe here, Thorne assured her, triggering the office's privacy mode. The glass walls instantly frosted over, and a soft hum indicated electronic countermeasures against surveillance were active. Dahlia connected the flash drive to Thorne's computer. My father said my mother compiled this before she was attacked. It might be outdated, but it's a start. The files were extensive. Financial records, emails, shipping manifests, all pointing to Maxwell Blackwood and Vernon Hayes using Blackwood Technologies as a front for illegal arms dealing. The operation had been sophisticated, with customers including warlords and extremist groups around the world. My father was a monster, Thorne said quietly, scrolling through the evidence. So was Vernon Hayes. Dahlia pointed to a particular document. Look at this. Vernon wasn't just a partner. He was the primary contact with buyers. He handled the deals while your father provided the infrastructure. Thorne studied the document. This gives us leverage, but it's still historical. We need to prove Vernon is continuing the operation. I can help with that. They turned to find Lawrence Merrick standing in the doorway, escorted by Thorne's head of security. Dad, how did you find us? I put a tracker in the flash drive, Lawrence admitted. After everything that's happened, I wasn't about to let you face this alone. He approached the desk, eyeing Thorne warily. My house was broken into an hour ago. They took my computer, my files, everything related to my patents. Vernon's tying up loose ends, Thorne said grimly. He thinks the flash drive was destroyed in the fire. He's wrong about that, and about my patents. Lawrence reached into his pocket and pulled out a small device. This contains the complete specifications for my manufacturing process. Vernon doesn't know it, But the patents he's so desperate to acquire are for a detection system I designed years ago, specifically to identify and track the kind of weapons Maxwell was trafficking. Thorne's eyes widened. That's why my father wanted them so badly. And why Vernon wants them now, Lawrence confirmed. With this system integrated into shipping networks, his entire operation would be exposed. Dahlia looked at her father with new respect. You've been planning this for years, haven't you? Waiting for the right moment to expose them. I promised your mother I would finish what she started. Lawrence's expression softened. When she died, I almost gave up. But I knew someday you would discover the truth, and I wanted to have answers for you. Thorne's phone buzzed with a security alert. He checked it, and his expression darkened. Vernon Hayes just entered the building. He's requesting an emergency meeting with me and the board. He's making his move, Lawrence said. The takeover. Then we make ours. Thorne's eyes flashed with determination. I'm calling an all-hands meeting in the main conference room. Everyone, board members, executives, department heads. We'll expose Vernon publicly, with evidence. It's risky, Dahlia cautioned. He might have allies within the company. Almost certainly, Thorne agreed. But we have something he doesn't expect, you two. No one knows you're here. They quickly formulated a plan. Thorne would meet with Vernon and the board as requested, stalling for time. Meanwhile, Dahlia and Lawrence would compile the most damning evidence from the flash drive and Lawrence's patents, ready to present when Thorne gave the signal. As Thorne prepared to leave, Dahlia caught his arm. Be careful. Vernon already tried to kill us once today. I will. He hesitated, then leaned forward and kissed her briefly. For luck. The boardroom was tense when Thorne arrived. Vernon Hayes sat at one end of the table, flanked by his lawyers. The Blackwood Technologies board members filled the remaining seats, their expressions ranging from concern to outright hostility. Thorne, Vernon greeted him with false warmth. We were beginning to worry, especially after that unfortunate fire at the marina. Yes, very unfortunate. Thorne replied coolly, taking his seat at the head of the table. Almost as unfortunate as the break-in at Lawrence Merrick's home. Vernon's smile faltered slightly. I haven't heard about any break-in. Haven't you? Thorne held his gaze. That's strange, considering how well-informed you usually are about the Merricks. The board chairman cleared his throat. Mr. Blackwood, Mr. Hayes has presented a revised acquisition offer that the board feels merits serious consideration, especially given the recent public relations challenges. You mean the rumors that Mr. Hayes himself leaked to the press? Thorne countered. Vernon laughed dismissively. That's a serious accusation, Thorne. I'm simply here as a businessman, offering a solution to Blackwood Technologies' current crisis. A crisis you engineered, Thorne said. Just like you engineered Project Nightshade with my father. The room went silent. Vernon's face hardened. I don't know what you're talking about. Don't you? Thorne pressed a button on his phone, signaling Dahlia and Lawrence. I think it's time we all learned exactly what Vernon Hayes is talking about. The boardroom doors opened, and Dahlia entered with Lawrence behind her. Vernon's face went ashen. Impossible, he whispered. You were in the fire. Surprise, Dahlia said, her voice steady despite her racing heart. She connected a laptop to the room's projection system, and the evidence from the flash drive appeared on the wall screen. Ladies and gentlemen, Thorne addressed the stunned board. Prepare yourselves for the true legacy of Blackwood Technologies, and the real reason Vernon Hayes wants control of this company. 6 months later, Dahlia stood at the window of her new office, watching autumn leaves dance across the grounds of the Merrick Blackwood Foundation. The converted mansion that once housed the Westlake Springs Historical Society now served as headquarters for their newly established organization dedicated to identifying and preventing illegal arms trafficking. Admiring the view again? Thorne asked, entering with 2 cups of coffee. Just thinking about how much has changed, she replied, accepting the cup. 6 months ago, I was shelving books and avoiding my cousin's wedding. Thorne's mouth quirked into a smile. And I was running a company with a dark legacy I knew nothing about. The aftermath of the boardroom confrontation had been chaotic but decisive. Vernon Hayes had attempted to flee but was detained by security. The evidence Dahlia and Lawrence presented was irrefutable, not only of the historical Project Nightshade operation but of Vernon's continued involvement. His offshore accounts, shell corporations, and communications with arms buyers were all exposed. The FBI had been called, and Vernon now awaited trial on multiple federal charges. Several Blackwood Technologies executives who had been complicit were also indicted. Thorne had spent months cooperating with authorities, rebuilding the company's leadership, and implementing Lawrence's weapons detection system across their global shipping network. The foundation received another grant this morning, Dahlia mentioned, settling behind her desk. The Peterson Group was impressed with our educational outreach program. That's the third major grant this quarter, Thorne noted with approval. Your mother would be proud. The mention of Eleanor no longer brought pain. Instead, Dahlia felt a sense of completion, of justice served. She started this fight 25 years ago. I like to think we finished it for her. Their relationship had evolved gradually amid the chaos. After the boardroom confrontation, they had worked closely with federal investigators, piecing together the complete history of Project Nightshade and Vernon's current operations. Days spent reviewing evidence turned into dinners discussing strategy, which became evenings sharing personal stories and building trust. The scandal of their supposed family connection had been thoroughly debunked by the DNA test Thorne insisted on making public. Vanessa, humiliated by her role in spreading false rumors and her uncle's criminal exposure, had retreated to Europe indefinitely. The last Dahlia heard, her cousin was in the process of divorcing Richard, who had apparently been aware of Vernon's illegal activities. Lawrence Merrick had undergone his own transformation, with his patents now properly licensed to the reorganized Blackwood Technologies. He had financial security for the first time in years. He served as the foundation's technical advisor, his expertise in detection systems becoming its cornerstone initiative. The library called again, Thorne said, interrupting her thoughts. They want to know if you'll reconsider their offer. Dahlia shook her head. I miss it sometimes, but this work is more important. You can always donate books to the Foundation's Resource Center, he suggested. Build your own library within our walls. Already planning to, she admitted. I ordered the first shipment yesterday. A knock at the door announced the arrival of Lawrence with a box of files. The analysis of Vernon's Southeast Asian network is complete, he said, setting down the box. We've identified 3 major buyers and their shipping routes. I'll review it before the FBI briefing tomorrow, Dahlia promised. Lawrence nodded, his relationship with Thorne now one of grudging respect. I'm heading home for the day. Don't work too late, you two. After he left, Thorne moved around Dahlia's desk and took her hands, pulling her to her feet. He's right. We should call it a day. We have the gala tomorrow, Dahlia reminded him. There's still so much to prepare. The Foundation's first major fundraiser can spare us one evening. He tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, a gesture that had become familiar and cherished. Besides, I have something to show you. Curious, Dahlia allowed him to lead her to his car. They drove through Westlake Springs, past the library where their journey had begun, beyond the country club where they had first danced, and up into the wooded hills overlooking the town. Where are we going? She asked as they turned onto a private drive. You'll see. The drive ended at a clearing where a modern house of glass and stone stood among the trees. Its large windows reflected the late afternoon sunlight, giving it a warm glow against the autumn foliage. What is this place? Dahlia asked as they got out of the car. It's mine. Or ours, if you want it to be. Thorne took her hand again. I bought it last month. After spending my whole life in the shadow of Blackwood Tower, I wanted something different. Something that belongs just to us, not to our family histories. He led her inside, where the open-concept living area faced floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the valley. The town of Westlake Springs lay spread out below them, a picturesque New England scene. It's beautiful, Dahlia breathed, taking in the view. There's one more thing. Thorne directed her attention to a room off the main living area. This is what I really wanted to show you. He opened the double doors to reveal a home library. Floor-to-ceiling bookshelves lined 3 walls, with a rolling ladder to reach the highest shelves. A window seat occupied the 4th wall, overlooking the woods behind the house. The shelves were already half filled with books, many of them first editions she had once mentioned loving. Thorne, she whispered, overwhelmed. How did you? I had help from Melanie at the public library, he admitted. She told me which ones were your favorites, the ones you would read during your lunch breaks or recommend to patrons most often. Dahlia moved through the room, running her fingers along the spines of books she had loved for years. This is the most thoughtful gift anyone has ever given me. It's not just a gift. Thorne's expression grew serious. It's a promise. Whatever comes next, for the foundation, for Blackwood Technologies, for us, I want you to have a sanctuary. A place that's truly yours. Ours, she corrected, turning to face him. If we've learned anything from all this, it's that we're stronger together than apart. He smiled, drawing her close. Dahlia Merrick, when I first saw you at that wedding rehearsal, I had no idea how completely you would change my life. For the better, I hope, she teased. Beyond measure. His expression softened. The ugly bridesmaid turned out to be the most beautiful person I've ever known, inside and out. And the intimidating billionaire turned out to have a heart after all, she countered, rising on tiptoes to kiss him. As the sun set over Westlake Springs, casting golden light through the library windows, Dahlia reflected on the journey that had brought them here. From secrets and lies had come truth and purpose. From suspicion had come trust. From an accidental meeting at a wedding had come a partnership neither of them had expected, but both now treasured above all else. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, the gala, the ongoing investigations, the Foundation's expanding mission. But tonight, in this peaceful library overlooking the town where both their stories had begun, they had found something rare and precious, a new beginning untainted by the shadows of the past. Dahlia had once been mocked as the plain, awkward librarian, forever in her beautiful cousin's shadow. Thorne had been feared as the cold, calculating businessman, carrying his father's tarnished legacy. Together, they had rewritten both their stories, proving that true beauty lies in courage and integrity, and true strength in vulnerability and trust. "Welcome home," Thorne whispered against her hair. And for the first time in her life, Dahlia knew exactly where she belonged. The Merrick Blackwood Foundation Gala transformed the Hartwick Country Club ballroom into an elegant vision of midnight blue and silver. Crystalline centerpieces adorned tables where Connecticut's elite mingled with government officials, security experts, and nonprofit leaders. The event had drawn over 300 attendees, far exceeding expectations for the Foundation's debut on the charitable circuit. Dahlia adjusted her earring in the ladies' room mirror, hardly recognizing herself in the sapphire gown that Thorne had insisted on having custom-made for her. Her hair was styled in loose waves, and subtle makeup enhanced her features without masking them. Gone was the insecure librarian hiding behind wire-rimmed glasses and shapeless clothes. In her place stood a woman who had faced down danger and deception and emerged stronger. "There you are," Melanie said, entering with a champagne flute in hand. "Thorne's looking for you. The FBI director just arrived." Since the exposure of Project Nightshade, Melanie had joined the Foundation as its communications director, bringing her library research skills to a new arena. Their friendship had deepened through their shared work. "How's the crowd?" Dahlia asked, smoothing her dress. "Eating out of your hand after that speech," Melanie assured her. 3 major defense contractors have already pledged support for the detection system implementation. Dahlia took a steadying breath. "I still can't believe we pulled this off." "Believe it." Melanie squeezed her arm. "Eleanor would be so proud of you." When Dahlia returned to the ballroom, she immediately spotted Thorne in conversation with the FBI director and the Homeland Security Secretary. He wore a tailored tuxedo that emphasized his broad shoulders, his dark hair groomed to perfection. Even after months together, the sight of him still quickened her pulse. As if sensing her presence, Thorne glanced up and caught her eye across the room. He excused himself from the conversation and made his way to her side. "You disappeared," he said, his voice low as he took her hand. "Getting cold feet about the announcement." "Just needed a moment," she admitted. "It's strange being back here. Last time I was in this ballroom, you were hiding from Vanessa's bridesmaids, and I was bringing you whiskey," he finished with a smile. "Things have changed a bit." "Just a bit," she agreed, glancing around at the gathered dignitaries and business leaders. "Though I still don't quite fit in with this crowd." "Neither do I," Thorne confessed. "But together, we seem to be making an impression." Lawrence approached them, accompanied by Senator Harrington, Vanessa's father and Dahlia's uncle. The relationship had been strained since Vernon's arrest, but Patricia had insisted her husband support the Foundation publicly to help restore the family's reputation. "Dahlia," Senator Harrington greeted her stiffly. "Impressive turnout." "Thank you, Uncle William." She accepted his awkward kiss on the cheek. "We appreciate your support. Your aunt sends her regards," he added. Though they both knew Patricia had refused to attend, still loyal to her brother despite his crimes. And there's a message from Vanessa. She's completed her rehabilitation program in Switzerland and plans to return to the States next month. This was news. Dahlia exchanged glances with Thorne. That's good to hear. She's asked to meet with you. The senator continued, looking uncomfortable. Says she has some making amends to do. Before Dahlia could respond, the event coordinator signaled that it was time for the main presentation. She excused herself and joined Thorne on the small stage where a podium had been set up. Ladies and gentlemen, Thorne began, his voice commanding immediate attention. Thank you for joining us tonight to support the Merrick Blackwood Foundation's mission to combat illegal arms trafficking worldwide. As he outlined the Foundation's achievements over the past 6 months, the implementation of Lawrence's detection system in 3 major shipping networks, the identification of 5 trafficking routes, the training programs for customs officials, Dahlia watched the audience. People who had once dismissed her as Vanessa's plain cousin now listened attentively, respect evident in their expressions. Tonight, we're proud to announce a significant expansion of our work, Thorne continued. Thanks to a partnership with the Department of Homeland Security and the support of many in this room, the Foundation will be opening international offices in London, Singapore, and Dubai by year's end. Applause rippled through the crowd. Dahlia stepped to the microphone. This expansion represents more than just growth, she added. It represents hope. Hope that the technologies and methodologies we're developing can make a real difference in preventing weapons from reaching those who would use them for harm. As she spoke about her mother's legacy and the Foundation's future, Dahlia felt a sense of purpose that had once seemed impossible to achieve. The path that had brought her here had been painful and dangerous, but she wouldn't change it. After the presentation, as they circulated among the donors, Agent Foster of the FBI pulled them aside. We've received intelligence that Vernon's network is attempting to regroup, she said quietly. His second-in-command, Martin Reeves, has been spotted in Jakarta. Martin was Vernon's legal counsel. Thorne frowned. I always suspected he was more involved than he appeared. We're organizing an international task force, Foster explained. Given your Foundation's expertise and your personal knowledge of the network, we'd like you both to consult. Of course, Dahlia agreed immediately. When do you need us? Briefing is Monday in Washington. Foster handed them a classified folder. This contains what we know so far. I trust you'll keep it secure. Later that night, as the gala wound down, Dahlia and Thorne escaped to the terrace where they had first spoken candidly at Vanessa's wedding. The night was clear, stars visible above the club's manicured grounds. It never ends, does it? Dahlia mused, thinking of Foster's briefing. Just when we think we've contained Nightshade, it finds new soil. That's why our work matters, Thorne replied, his arm around her waist. Each operation we stop saves lives. Speaking of operations, Dahlia turned to face him. This Jakarta situation might be dangerous. You don't have to come. The Foundation needs you here. Thorne shook his head firmly. We're partners, remember? In everything. I'm not letting you face Vernon's network alone. I would have 7 federal agents with me, she pointed out, none of whom know Vernon's methods like I do. His expression grew serious. Besides, I have personal reasons for wanting to see this through. Your father's legacy? Partly. He took her hands in his. But mostly because I'm planning a future that doesn't include looking over our shoulders for Vernon's associates. A future, she repeated, a smile playing at her lips. What kind of future are you planning, Mr. Blackwood? Instead of answering directly, Thorne reached into his pocket and withdrew a small velvet box. Dahlia's breath caught as he opened it to reveal a sapphire ring surrounded by diamonds. The kind where you're by my side, always, he said softly. Not because our family's histories are intertwined, or because we're business partners, but because I love you, Dahlia Merrick. I have since that night in the library when you challenged everything I thought I knew. Dahlia felt tears prick her eyes as Thorne knelt before her, there on the same terrace where their journey had begun. Will you marry me? He asked, his usual confidence replaced by vulnerability she rarely saw. Yes, she whispered, her voice strengthening as she repeated, Yes, Thorne, I will. As he slipped the ring onto her finger and rose to kiss her, applause erupted from the doorway. The gala attendees had gathered to witness the moment, with Lawrence at the front, his eyes suspiciously bright. Should have known you'd make it a public affair. Dahlia murmured against Thorne's lips. Only partly planned, he admitted. I was going to wait until we were home. But seeing you tonight, leading our foundation, fighting for what your mother started, I couldn't wait another minute. As congratulations poured in from all sides, Dahlia realized how completely her life had transformed. From the shadows of others, she had stepped into her own light. From isolation, she had found partnership. From the painful secrets of the past, she and Thorne were forging a future built on truth. And as she looked at the sapphire gleaming on her finger, the same color as the eyes she'd inherited from Eleanor, she knew this was just the beginning of their story.